Hey everyone, and welcome to WP Roundtable. We've got another great guest today, and we'll kick it off. Kellen, go ahead.
All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Kellen Mace. I am a professional WordPress developer in on the east side of Michigan, Rochester Hills area. Happy to have Mr. Zack Katz on tonight with us. Kyle.
Hey folks, I'm Kyle Maurer. I'm from Jackson, Michigan, and I love doing stuff with WordPress, especially making plugins. And that is why I'm so stoked to have our very special guest on today, because he knows a darn thing or two about making WordPress plugins. He's been doing it a long time. He's made more plugins than I can even comprehend. If we were to talk about all his plugins, we would need to extend this episode probably for the rest of the week. But we're going to keep this down to 60 minutes if it's possible and just cover the best. So, Zack Katz, why don't you just introduce yourself real quick and say hi?
Hey everybody, I'm Zack Katz. I run Katz Web Services, and I do WordPress development. And yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. We're super grateful to have you on the show today, Zack. I'm really excited. I know that there's a lot of cool stuff that I want to talk about. And we've got a ton of questions, so we'll try and pare down just the best ones. Let's just start back at the beginning a little bit and talk about what you were doing kind of before the web, before you got into WordPress, before you got into like your current career. What were you doing back then? What did you want to do?
Well, I started with the web kind of I set up a blogger.com blog, and that was my first exposure to the web, and kind of got in a lot of trouble by oversharing some some stuff early on. And actually before that it was a GeoCities website. So I've been tinkering around with the web for a long time, and before that I always enjoyed using computers, and so it was just a natural progression to just think of what you can do online and do it.
So what was the next step that brought you into kind of the WordPress world?
Well, I was working at an inn and doing construction work, and the innkeeper said, like, hey, we need a website. Anybody know how to do a website? And I said, well, I'll do a website. It beats construction work. So I did their website, and that was my first job really for working on the web, and that led to me, like 4 or 5 months later, quitting and starting my own web development company, Katz Web Design. And shortly thereafter, I moved to Denver, Colorado with my wife, and I started cold calling people, just going down a Better Business Bureau list of businesses and cold calling potential clients and asking if they needed a website. And that's how I got started.
That's pretty awesome. You probably had lots and lots of folks say, "Who? No, no thanks. Why are you calling me?" That kind of thing. But you persevered. Look at you now.
Well,
Awesome,
and that's part of the thing that I love about online business is you can just pick up the phone. It still exists. And there are businesses out there that don't have a website, that have phone lines. Just if you need business, pick up a phone, start calling people, and you will land jobs. You will, no matter what your skill level. That's how you get started.
Right.
Start small.
A while back, Jason and I were talking about ways to find clients if you were in a slump or whatever, and we thought about, what if you find people with just ugly websites or websites that aren't that functional, and you message them and say in it as diplomatically as possible, I think you could use this,
Right. Well, don't even message them on their website. Give them a call. Like,
Yeah.
they probably haven't been to their website in 5 years since it was made. So, give them a call. Don't insult them, but say, I understand that your website was really great when you launched it, or how do you feel about your website? Anyway,
Yeah.
It's so easy if you're persistent. And so, I know that you guys wanted to talk about, any recommendations for people getting started in business, and that's really my biggest one, is just be persistent and start small.
Cool, man. Next here, we wanted to touch on when did you first think you could make a career in the WordPress world? At what point did that happen?
You know, it happened before I started using WordPress. It was more just when did I think I could make a career online? So once I realized that cold calling worked, and I started going to business groups, like lead groups, where a bunch of business owners meet up and share referrals for people that know each other, and like, oh, I know a guy who needs a website. That actually works. If you show up time and time again, and and don't only do that, but promote yourself and your business, then once I started getting clients that were coming to me, I knew that I could make it work.
Very cool.
That
All right.
sounds
So in the
a lot.
beginning, it sounds like it was mostly services, and then later in your career, you would move into a lot of products and even a SaaS service and stuff. We'll get into a little later on in more detail. But we wanted to know, before we dive into all of that, what is a typical day like these days for Zack Katz?
These days, it's support development.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, it's support in development, like bug fixes. It's been hard for me to devote as much time to my free plugins because I have paid customers that are telling me about some issues with products, and I've got to fix those first. And so that's what my day looks like, is a heck of a lot of support.
Yeah.
So I love talking about your early start. That sounds like so similar to how I got started too, starting our agency and going to these business meetup groups, starting these small businesses, getting hands-on referrals, local chamber of commerce, and all that kind of stuff. So that's so cool. I'm curious, like, what kind of businesses did you get to work with in those early days? As small businesses, startups? What was your community like? What were some interesting ones? And just some of those early stories interest me.
There was one that was really fun that that it's like a thing that they attach diodes to your head and measure your emotional state, but like also what you're allergic to based on the electronic responses of this like machine that reads a bunch of stuff. So she ran me through the machine and it said I should avoid white beans. Like I don't know. So that was a fun one. I had a really productive partnership with a graphic designer that he would land the logo, the business cards, that kind of thing, design the website, and then have me kind of break it down into HTML and CSS. And so that was really a good partnership to have to really get me consistent business. And there was a trucking company, the one that I really liked. That was the first time I did some CSS image replacement, where you hover over the menu and it goes to another image. That was pretty slick.
Mm-hmm.
So, what would you say your elevator speech would be?
I had a practiced elevator speech when I was part of the business groups, but I'm glad to say that I don't have one anymore. It's more like, do you know what WordPress is? Oh yeah, well I do WordPress plugins. Like, that's my elevator speech. It's like, do you know what WordPress is? No. Well, I do web development. Keep it simple. If they want to know more, they can ask.
It's so interesting how that has changed over the years. Like, you've been doing this long enough so that you could probably say, you could probably like speak to that even more, how it's changed over time, or how maybe it was more necessary for you to elaborate on that at one time, but now, like, WordPress is as a household name, such a huge adoption. And that was kind of what I wanted to ask about you next to the two, about like how maybe how the industry has changed a little bit since you started, because you started years before I got into the game, and also how your business has changed over time.
Yeah, the industry I can't really speak to, because I've always been working for myself, and I'm not really sure how the industry has changed. I know that WordPress has gone from 2.5 to 4 now, and it's just worlds apart from what it used to be. But I think there's still a long way to go. I read these articles about iOS development and Android development and how hard it is to make money on those in the app stores. And I can tell you, WordPress is an untapped market for good products. Like if you have a product that you've spent time on, developed, thought about what the business is going to be, WordPress is huge. So we're still at the beginning, I think, for where WordPress can go. And for me professionally, I started out doing websites, and I realized I didn't like doing websites. That what I liked doing was hacking solutions to the website's problems, like finding out how to use Blogger in a way where you do template includes, and you have like, and it would look like the website, but it's actually on Blogger. Then that transitioned into WordPress, and actually like a full website and blog. And then how to customize WordPress by creating plugins that solved problems. And so I moved from websites to plugins, and then to paid plugins. So that's my transition. And it's really the services to the products side. Like when you have an hourly, when you're being paid hourly to fix something on somebody's website or to develop something, it's a completely different thing than when you sell a product. It's been a really wild transition into a product-based business, and one that I'm still really working on tweaking and figuring out, because I've only really been majority product-based for maybe a year.
So,
right. Sorry, Jason.
In that regard, okay. What are some of the key points you've learned over the lessons you've gotten over the last 9 years of business online?
Well, I did SEO for a while, and that was really helpful in getting my business found. And now I'm not sure, because I kind of have a reputation, I have a lot of plugins on WordPress. It's easier for my plugins to get found just because somebody finds a plugin and sees that I have like 39 other plugins. They click on my name and they find some other stuff. In terms of advice for people to get, I don't know. It's the industry has changed so much. Google's always changing their algorithms. I think having an understanding of SEO would be a really good step to take, is like understand how your business gets found and what converts. Those are helpful.
Definitely. Next, we wanted to talk about what have been some of the biggest surprises you've encountered since starting your own business.
I think that the untapped market of WordPress and how vibrant the WordPress community is. There's the last thing I remember is 17%. I'm sure it's more than that now. That runs 17% of the web runs WordPress. It's been surprising how just persistence and and finding solutions to problems that other people have. That is a good way to make money. It works if you do it, and even before I had paid products, I just had a paid support functionality where people pay me for an hour of support, and if you have you can make money online if you just dedicate yourself to it. So that's surprising to me, because it's really easy, and I encourage everybody to give it a shot. If you are interested, make a plugin, put it on the WordPress repo, and just get your feet wet and see what happens.
Very cool. Well, good surprises from the sound of it. That's
yeah,
good.
Totally.
That's good. How about before we transition a little bit from talking about your business, Katz Web Services, first tell us, what does the future hold for your company?
I'm really focused on Gravity View right now, which is a plugin that shows Gravity Forms entries on the front end of a website, and I'm working with a bunch of other developers to build out that functionality and it's really been fun to refine it in a user experience sense and make it simple and easy to use. And I'm always frustrated by any limitations that any product has, and so that applies doubly to my own products. So I've been enjoying building that out a lot.
That's cool. Gravity View is very cool from what I've seen, and I know even the makers of Gravity Forms, I think, were themselves had said that's a really great feature. We've heard, from users a definite need for it, and now I think even they're grateful to have you provide that and strengthen their core product too, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I spoke to Carl Hancock, I don't know if he was the sole founder, but he's one of the founders of Rocket Genius, who makes Gravity Forms.
Right.
And he said that they had been considering and kind of built out a beta of something that did similar to what I'm doing, and they actually called it Gravity View.
Really? Oh no! Wow.
But apparently, I came along and released my own called Gravity View, and yeah.
Beat him to the punch. Well, good.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's pretty awesome. And definitely does look like a really, really cool product for a super cool purpose. And I think that's awesome. So I want to know a little bit about how you first got into plugin development. Like, what were some of the kind of like the early things that kind of brought you into making WordPress plugins? Were you developing other things, or was this kind of an early foray into development? And what were some of the first plugins that you ended up making?
Well, yeah, I was doing a client site that they use Constant Contact, and they had the HTML that Constant Contact output for their newsletter sign-up form. And at that time, Constant Contact didn't have any plugins on WordPress, and their generated HTML was crap. It was HTML. It was not XHTML, and at that time, the website I was developing, I was very, very concerned that everything valid XHTML. So that was not going to work. I needed the client to be able to move the widget around, and I didn't like that all they saw was code. And so if they just pasted the code into a text widget, and so I created the Constant Contact WordPress sign-up form, and you paste it in the bad HTML, hit submit, PHP did some string replaces, and it output valid XHTML, and that was like V1. that was the first plugin I did, and I got hooked. Once you learn how to make a plugin, it's a PHP file with different first lines of code, and that's all it is. So it's really it was empowering to realize how simple it was to create a custom plugin.
Very cool. Next, we wanted to ask you, in your opinion, what sets your plugins apart from the rest?
I don't have an answer for that. I wish, my professional plugins, I definitely am, I stand by more than some of my earlier WordPress plugins. It kind of relates to another question you guys had for me, which was, I've put up a lot of plugins for adoption recently. And I'm trying to focus on making my plugins as good as possible, and now I'm really happy with how they are. But if you're a developer, I think you understand that you're always ashamed of the code you've written in the past. So I hope that what sets my current plugins apart is their quality and their code comments. I've been just commenting every frigging line of code.
Yeah. I saw somebody just today posted a little meme or something like that on Twitter that said, have you ever dreamt about traveling back in time and battling a younger version of yourself? Totally. If so, software development is the career for you.
Exactly. Like, what the hell was I thinking? This makes zero sense, and you have no comments in there. There was a good XKCD about that too.
Is there? Yeah.
Nice. So, what was your first premium plugin?
It's a plugin called IDX Plus, and it's an add-on plugin. It's a real estate plugin that works on top of another IDX plugin called DS-ID Express, which is a popular plugin for showing real estate listings from different for realtors. So for your real estate website, you install the plugin and you can show all the listings on your MLS. And DS-ID Express got really popular because it indexes really well with Google, so Google was able to read it really well, and it's really powerful for that reason. And IDX Plus solves some of the functionality gaps that it has, where it has you can customize the templates, it improves the SEO of the listing format. So that's my first one, and it's still one of my 2 premium plugins.
So at a certain back in 05, I think you started Katz Web Services. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And so you were doing client work for a while.
Right.
So at what point did you kind of like move into the product space? And then how long did it take you to switch? Because I get the impression you're not doing a lot of client work anymore.
I'm not doing any client work anymore, which I'm really happy about. You know, it started with clients. It started just customizing plugins and doing free plugins, and then I would have plugins as a feature that I could pitch to clients and say, you know, if you have a snow removal company, here's a weather plugin you could help sponsor the development of, and so they would help sponsor the development of the Wonderground plugin that I developed, and then I would add that to their website, and you know, so it kind of became part of a package that I was selling. But then I realized I really don't like doing client work. I like doing work that builds on itself, where what I do helps my future self make money, helps my future self do what I like doing. And so I like doing plugins. I like building solutions that other people find useful. I like contributing to WordPress. I like that WordPress is free. So I didn't want to be tied to the number of hours that I had in a day. So when you have 40 hours a week doing client work, you know, you can bill for 40 hours. But if you build a product, if you build plugins that build, you know, their own user bases, that's how you separate yourself from being tied to your hourly wage. And so I kind of saw that and knew that it was the right business decision, and it was also what I wanted to do. So it really matched up nicely.
So for anybody considering getting into plugin development here, do you have any, like, I don't want to say like words of wisdom, but maybe words of caution, issues that probably need to be thought of before you start trying to make a business out of it?
Well, if it depends on your development capabilities. I think for me, the one thing that kind of got me in was finding a niche, and then I found another niche, and then I kind of moved around a bit. But I started off with email marketing, and I built integrations with Constant Contact, iContact, Vertical Response. I just built a bunch of similar plugins that reused some of the code base, and that's how I got started. But I think being a specialist in something is a really good place to start, where find what interests you and build that.
That's cool. That definitely good advice. I think I completely agree with you that at this point, with as many plugins as are out there, you've got to find those openings, and it sounds like you found a couple of cool ones in like the real estate industry, and you said email marketing, and now the gravity view one as well. I'd be interested to see, you know, what people are using that for. And do you have a lot of that kind of information?
You know, I'm not able to see where they're being activated, but a lot of education websites, a lot of business directories, there's one site that is doing like a nanny directory for finding a nanny to babysit your kids. So it's fun seeing how your product gets used. You can't think of how many different ways people are going to use a product until they say, hey, I'm having trouble doing this, and you're like, what are you doing? That wasn't designed to do that at all, but it works. So that's a really rewarding part too, is that people can express their own kind of hacking mentality when it comes to finding a plugin and customizing it.
That's very cool. I've heard we had Pippin Williamson on several weeks ago as another guest, and I think we heard something similar from him. He said you wouldn't believe once you release something out into the wild, you wouldn't believe the kinds of use cases. He said I had some easy digital downloads is geared toward digital products, right? So you see it, would have people contacting him saying, yeah, I'm having trouble selling physical products with using your plugin. And he said, well, why would you ever do that? But it turns out, there are a few edge cases out there he hadn't considered where the primary product was digital, but it had to have a physical component or something like that, right? Or kind of the unexpected
well,
edge
one
cases
of the things that like one of the stages of my business was I have a lot of plugins on the WordPress repo, and people wanted them customized. So I would say, okay, here's a quote to do what you need done, like to get what you need done. Like if I have a Gravity Forms Salesforce plugin where people have sponsored different features, and I build out a quote and I develop it for them. So that's another opportunity for people. If you have a WordPress plugin in the repo and you say, hey, if you want another feature, contact us, and we will we will build it for you, we will integrate it, and that's another way to get clients that find you rather than you trying to find them.
Yeah, that's cool. It's a good method. Next, we want to talk about just what general advice would you have for somebody looking to sell WordPress products, and specifically what I'm most interested in hearing from you on is how to test the waters, so to speak. It's one thing to create a simple to moderate complexity plugin and put it up for free on .org, not expecting that it's going to be a means of income for you, that kind of thing. But for these folks who are considering the weighty, complex plugins to put themselves out there and try to make a real product out of it, how do you know that there's a market for that and a need for that before you dive in and spend a lot of time building that?
Well, for me, part of what I've done is built on top of already successful businesses. Like I know people want to use Constant Contact. I know people are using Gravity Forms. It has some crazy number of sales, and so I know there's already a market for people who want to extend and enhance the functionality of those plugins and services. So that's where I knew there was a market. If you know there's a market, then it's pretty easy to know that people will buy your stuff. It's just a matter of getting found, and that's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of work to do a launch campaign. And with Gravity View, it was kind of my first time doing that, where I had like the teasers, I had a beta sign-up process where you send out MailChimp campaigns, you do it's a lot of work getting things ready, and it paid off. It did pay off, but I was surprised at how much work it took to just run what seems to the end user to be a pretty simple campaign. You get a couple of emails over the course of a couple of weeks, and when it's released, there's another email, and you buy it. Well, that involves setting up the website, setting up the upgrade process, doing all the graphics, getting the logo, there's so much that goes into it that that I think you just kind of have to close your eyes and keep going. I don't know. If you think you have a good product and you think there's going to be sales, take a bet and bet on yourself, because I think that's the only way you're going to succeed is if you just go for it.
Very cool. Do you think that for yourself or others who have transitioned from a service-based business where they're working with clients directly and hearing from them some of the pain points for maybe functionality they wish existed and maybe that would prompt you to build out a certain plugin, now that you're distancing yourself from that, do you feel like you would not fall out of touch because you're deeply entrenched in the WordPress world, of course, but you know what I mean, just a little away from the front lines, users, and not getting that same input all the time?
Well, I've kind of taken a different approach to solving problems now. Like I'm a lot more hesitant to put something on the WordPress repo and a lot more likely to just put it on a GitHub repo instead. So, I still create little hacks that fix problems that I encounter on WordPress, but I don't put them on the WordPress repo because that's going to be there forever and people are going to get mad. So,
and that's a perfect lead into our next question. You had mentioned earlier that some of your older, smaller plugins you've made available for adoption. Why did you decide to do that? And also, how's it been working out so far?
Well, it's been working out well. Kyle adopted one, and it's been really helpful to have somebody else working on it. And I think that that's one of the things that WordPress could make a lot easier is collaboration. And GitHub has really changed the world in terms of how we expect to be able to collaborate on code. And pull requests and all that stuff, it's just kind of a complicated process to do that with Subversion and adding a user that has capabilities, and I haven't really gone there. Kyle's the first shared plugin that I've opened up to other collaborators. So in terms of keeping my ears to the ground and ideas for how other people can get involved, one of the things that I used to do when I was building just endless plugins was to go to the WordPress ideas forum and see what people needed fixed, see what they didn't like, see what needed to be done, like the WordPress gallery functionality with the big reboot. If somebody had done that and developed that and then pulled that into core, that would have been something that really would help everybody. So that's one way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely really, really cool. And have you? So the only plugin that you've that someone has adopted from you yet has been so far the one I adopted?
Right. Yeah. Sorry, I got off on a tangent there. Yeah. It's you're the only one so far. I hope anybody who's interested in taking over an old plugin, let me know. There are a lot of people who rely on them still, and I don't want to let them down, but I also don't have time to maintain them. So, yeah, if you want to dip your toes in, let me know.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a really cool thing right now. I know there's some other plugin developers doing. Even Pippin a few weeks ago said he was considering doing it with some of his older plugins. So for people like yourself in this situation with a lot of plugins on the repository, because you've been at this game for a little while, the question is, what do you do with these old plugins that aren't making you anything, and you're really busy, but people are actually using it? You can't, you don't want to just leave them to let them go. So the good news is that I think that this ecosystem of WordPress developers is growing so rapidly that there's a lot of people, kind of like myself and a lot of other early entry plugin developers, I think, looking to get hands-on with some plugin development stuff. So adding that adopt me tag to a plugin is pretty cool. I think Jeff Chandler recently highlighted on WP Tavern and did an article about it that was kind of promoting it, and I think it's an awesome practice.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, if you search WordPress.org and you go to, you enter adopt-me as the tag, people have listed some plugins there. And I did a search, and it was only like 18 plugins last week. So I was surprised how few were up for adoption, but like 8 of them were mine.
Yeah, I would be surprised. I was a little surprised at how few there are, but I do believe probably there's a lot of developers out there who have plugins on the repo who would add the tag if they knew about it.
Right.
So I would I would bet that a lot of developers who have those plugins that have that big brown banner that says hasn't been updated in a few years would be willing to throw that tag on there and let somebody else take over their plugin. There's probably a lot of theirs. So I was going to ask. We got a little bit ahead, but I was still curious about. You've launched a bunch of plugins at this point and launched new versions of plugins, and I'm curious to hear, just like you talked a little bit about surprises or getting better as you go at predicting the reception that there will be for something. Like you've probably launched some and had kind of an underwhelming reception of a plugin. Like you thought maybe it would, the more downloads would occur than actually did, or maybe the opposite, or maybe you just threw one out there and actually got really popular and that surprised you, or maybe you introduced a new feature and it was really popular, or conversely no one cared and it surprised you. So like, what experiences have you had like that, and how have you gotten better over time at kind of like predicting how something will be received?
Well, whenever there's a big launch to come up for a plugin, like a big version update that is a major rewrite and major functionality changes, it's always really stressful to when you know a plugin has to change. I just recently launched the new Wonderground plugin. Weather Underground sponsored a big update to it where it was completely rewritten using their new API. You know, it has all the functionality that you would expect it to have, and it was very different from how I did it before, which was pretty hacked together. And so doing that update, I knew people were going to be really frustrated because it was a major design shift. So all you could really do is keep it as backward compatible as possible and hold your breath. And you know, I made in big bold letters that said in the changelog, warning, this looks completely different. You may need to change your configuration a little bit. I well documented the new shortcode functionality. I tried, you can only do your best, but then you know, that's one of the things when you have a public product is customers are going to get frustrated when anything changes. You know, it's like iOS 6 to iOS 7. It had to happen, but boy, did it cause a hellstorm. So in terms of launching a product and getting better at it, I like to think I've done better testing and backward compatibility support, but it's never easier to get used to the feedback when it's negative, and it's really hard to focus on the positives that a lot of people have shared with you.
So do you have any favorite plugins out there, or some that are just like really unique that, because I know you've published quite a few on WordPress.org. I don't remember what the last total count I saw was, but it was around 40.
Yeah, it's around 40. I really, you know, when I was doing client work, it was, the first plugin I would install is the redirection plugin, which is really good. It's by John Godley, Urban Giraffe. I forget what his WordPress username is, but it makes it really easy to redirect an existing site to a new site structure, and they have automatic changes when you change the slug for a post. It automatically keeps track of that and redirects to appropriate places. Has pass-through URLs, which for those developers who are listening, like, is really cool, where you can go to a specific URL and it loads in another page in the background that, you know, the user doesn't know that you're loading in another page, but the URL is the same. So check out pass-through URLs. I think it's like HTTP code 504. Anyway, it's a really powerful plugin, and so that's one that I love installing.
Oh, that's really interesting. What about your biggest plugin? Which one is your most successful right now?
My most successful is Gravity View. My biggest is IDX Plus, and I'm working on actively reducing that and trying to rely more on existing code uh, rather than recreating like an 18-wheeler. So,
How's that? Oh, go ahead.
but Gravity View has been really popular, and I've been really grateful for that. And I'm glad to see that the free version of Gravity View that inspired it, which is the Gravity Forms directory plugin, is approaching 100,000 downloads, which I don't know how many active sites are using it, but I'm really happy that I'm getting a few plugins up to 100,000 downloads, and it's really rewarding to see that.
And how does that impact, like, does that have any impact on like your business ideas or how you adjust creating new plugins or, deciding which ones to keep and which ones to adopt out and stuff like that?
Right, it definitely does. Like in terms of cross-promotional potential, my Gravity Forms plugins definitely have that cross-promotional stuff. So of course I'll keep on supporting and maintaining the Gravity Forms ones, which then I can link up to Gravity View, which I haven't done yet. I've been very busy, but it definitely, I've been trying to think strategically in terms of how my business, in terms of the next stage of my business. And now that I'm a product business, the next stage is becoming a manager, really. And so I'm trying to figure out how to do that well, how to connect it with the code and keep doing what I like doing, while hiring more people and kind of creating a team. I don't have a team yet, other than a couple developers, but they don't really know each other well. So that's an interesting next stage, is developing culture and all that stuff. So I've always been a one-man shop until recently, and so it's the next stage is going to be really interesting and really fun to explore.
That does sound interesting. How are you communicating and working with these people? I know you gave us an idea of how many hours they were working, but what products are you using to keep in touch and manage everything remotely?
We're using Slack, which is a kind of new chat app and website that is cross-platform, and it supports Markdown, which is nice, and it supports embedding images. It's what Skype could have been if they just gave a damn. But so I stopped using Skype a lot, and now that's what I use mostly. But Skype is kind of my backup. But we go on there, and it's been really nice to just have it open and communicate throughout the day.
Nice.
So you also, aside from plugin development, you mentioned to me that you have a SaaS offering called Contactified. Is that something you're still working with?
Yeah, Contactified, I developed when I did the Constant Contact API plugin for WordPress. I already had a bunch of PHP code that I was using to connect to Constant Contact, and so I looked out there for opportunities to make money with that, and Shopify, a e-commerce store provider, they didn't have any connection with Constant Contact at the time, so I looked up how to connect with them and developed a PHP solution to it, and started promoting that on the Shopify website, and got accepted as an app, and that's been really good. A couple years in, it was showing how badly it was originally written, and I paid a developer to rewrite in Ruby. And so I've been working with a guy in Poland who's been my go-to developer for all the Ruby issues, because I don't write Ruby. So, so Contactified, having a SaaS app has been really nice because it's a consistent income. Once it's working, it just keeps on going, and people sign up, and it's been a really cool thing. So it's been going well. I had at one point looked into doing more SaaS stuff, but I don't think I will. I think I'm going to keep selling products that, instead of the monthly service thing, because the scaling on that is going to be a lot more than the scaling on just plugin support.
That's very interesting. So I'm glad to hear that that's going well, and also that you're going in the WordPress plugin development direction as a primary focus, because you're producing some really cool stuff, and I think that that only benefits everybody else.
Thank you.
So, do you participate in a lot of WordPress-related events?
I did a WordCamp in 2007 that really got me excited. When I was, or maybe it was 2008, I don't know. But I saw Matt, and I said, "Hi, Matt. Code is poetry." And he was like, "Uh-huh." So,
Did you really say that?
I really did say that, and I shook his hand, I thanked him, and I said, "Code is poetry." Anyway, so that was my brush with fame. That was my good WordCamp story.
Yep. From the moment you met the benevolent leader of this cult, and
Exactly.
you uttered the mantra.
Exactly.
Code is poetry.
Code is poetry.
Code is poetry. That's too funny.
That's good stuff.
So I did that. I went to WordCamp Phoenix, which was really fun. Man, is it nice to go to WordCamp in the middle of winter with the pool and palm trees, and that was lovely.
There you go.
And I was jealous of people going to WordCamp Miami, so I'm going to go next year. And I'm going to Pressnomics in, I think it's February, and that's again, I think that's in Arizona this year. So that'll be cool, because that's kind of a business-centered WordCamp, or yeah, essentially it's a business-centered WordCamp that's a lot smaller but focused on, you know, businesses built on top of WordPress.
It's pretty cool. So are there a significant part of what you do, of your business, just, you know, promoting what you do and networking and meeting people, is just, you know, the community you mentioned before, just going to these events? You do a lot of that?
I do some WordPress meetups around Denver. WordPress Happiness Hour is one of the ones that I've gone to, but not really. I mean, mostly my business is just building out the solutions and providing support for them.
So you mentioned Pressnomics. So there are other events that, you know, if anybody wanted to bump into you in person, where might that be likely?
Most likely at a coffee shop or movie theater. I'm like one of the 3 people that still goes to the movies, I think.
There's got to be more people than that. Crazy. Well, I haven't been impressed with what's been playing in the last couple of months anyway. It's like, seriously, we've had a gift card to go to the movies, and we check almost weekly, but nothing draws us in. So
I only go to the movies if it's in 3D.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, I wait until I can play it on my computer and watch it in my boxers.
Yeah, that's true.
So Zach, my wife and I actually lived in Denver for a year and then came back to Michigan, but it was awesome. Do you get up to the mountains much when you're not doing WordPress stuff or watching flicks?
You know, I don't really do as much mountain stuff as I would like to think that I do.
Yeah, I know. We were the same way. When we left, I was like, man, why didn't I go over to the mountains and do cool things more?
Right. There are a lot of people doing amazing stuff. Like there are a lot of meetups with like morning hikes starting at 4:30 where you climb 14ers, and you know, the Denver climate is so nice that my wife and I just enjoy sitting out on a patio and eating a lot of good food. And Denver's really blossomed and has a crazy economy now, and so it's a lot of cool stuff, a lot of hipsters and, you know, artisanal this and that's, and like you can have artisanal pickles and home roasted coffee and in the sunshine, and, you know, 75 degrees, and so that's what I think I prefer doing.
Yeah. Yep. Cool.
So we're getting down to the final moments here, Zach, and I wanted to just run a couple final quick questions past you, just real quick ones. if you don't mind.
Rapid lightning round.
Yeah. All right. So, other people in the community, I want to know from Zach, who in the WP community really inspires you? And maybe in that same breath, you could mention who you'd recommend we interview on the show in an upcoming episode.
I don't know if you've interviewed Joost de Valk, you know, the creator of WordPress SEO plugin. He is the best at branding in WordPress, I think. I mean, second to maybe Pippin, but I think Joost is even out there more than Pippin in terms of how recognizable he has all the cartoons of himself, and he's done an amazing job building a business on top of WordPress and providing a quality service. And so, I mean, if you can get him, that'd be awesome. Like, I think he's really top notch. And you know, Pippin and I'm going to butcher everybody else's names because they're all, you know, all I know is their usernames on WordPress.org. So, but and Andrew Oz, OZH, I don't know. I haven't met yet, so I look forward to meeting more people at WordCamps and stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really great. And we appreciate the recommendation. If we could get those folks on the show, well, we've had Pippin, but if we could have Joost come stop by, that would be really, really cool. Have you been acquainted?
Automatic, actually. Like, there's so many automaticians that I've met a few in Denver. You know, I'd like to hear more about what it's like working at the source, and you know, that'd be cool.
To date, we've had actually 2 automaticians on the show.
Oh,
so
dude, I need to catch up on my back catalog.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we had Jared Bates, who's a happiness engineer, and Dustin Hartzler as well, who also is a happiness engineer.
Have you had Jake Goldman on with 10up?
Oh, Jake Goldman, I hope I meet him soon because I'd like to ask him if he would come and join us, but we've never been acquainted and I haven't asked him yet.
Oh, nice.
That'd be great.
I generally haven't asked too many people that I haven't met yet.
Right.
Maybe you could recommend to us any super awesome, legit plugins that, of the few out there on the repo that you didn't create yourself, are there any that really stand out as awesome?
There are a bunch. I'm looking forward to trying. I've yet to have a use case for the Stream plugin that has been going around. It's kind of like the Audit Trail plugin that I have more experience with, but it gives it lets you know everything that happens on your website and keeps track of all the plugins that get updated, posts that are edited, all that stuff, and it's really extensible. So I've been wanting to hook into that with my IDX Plus plugin because I needed a way to track favorites and save searches and stuff like that, and display it in a user panel. So that's one of the ones that I've been wanting to play around with a lot. I watched your interview with Pippin, and he said go to WordPress.org to see, you know, my curated list of favorites, and mine is kind of like go to my WordPress.org profile and see my wish list of what I need to check out later, like that I haven't yet had a chance to really explore, but I know it's going to be awesome. So I'm looking forward to finding those plugins myself.
That's awesome, and definitely Stream is really, really awesome. We've only recently started using it, and it's fantastic. In fact, a couple weeks ago, we had Topher DeRocha on the show, and he's one of the developers who's contributed to Stream and works over at XT. And also another gentleman who's been one of the more lead developers who, one of the lead developers behind Stream, I just recently found out will also likely be an upcoming guest on the show as well. So we're going to be learning more about Stream. And I've even been developing an extension for Stream myself as well because I think it's just fantastic. Aside from that, are there any questions that we didn't get around to asking you that maybe we should cover?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I think I'm really interested in the business side of getting started. I love startups, and I'm really inspired when people take the leap and start developing them and start building their own businesses. So if anybody has any questions about, my experiences, just shoot me an email, shoot me a tweet on Twitter, message me, and I'd love to be helpful. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point that we should throw out there. And this would be your opportunity to say, fill in the blank. If you are, or you interested in, or you do, or you want blank, you should contact Zack Katz. Maybe you could fill that in. Who do you want to reach out to you?
I mean, in terms of like looking for customers and stuff, anybody who wants to, enhance gravity forms. But in terms of like people contacting me, I'm just trying to offer up my own experiences. So.
Are you still actively looking for other developers?
Oh, other developers, right? Yeah, I mean, if you have good object-oriented, skills and you like writing good code and you have time and you have experience, contact me. I'd love to find a good network of developers to work with.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really hope that people do, and I'll be sending people your way as I meet them for sure, because I think you're involved in some cool projects. So I don't know if I'm right, guys, but I think that about wraps it up for us today.
Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you very much, man.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Zack, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much,
guys. I've enjoyed it, and yeah, thanks for having me on.
I hope we get to bump into you and buy you a beer again one of these days in person.
That'd be great. Yeah, definitely. I'll be trying to go to more WordCamps.
Yeah, well, you'll see us at everyone in the Midwest at least.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, have a good night, you guys.
Yeah, you too, Zack.
You too. Thanks, Zack.
Bye.